Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I budget for living in the UK. I would definitely recommend starting a budget while you are still in your home country. This is a great opportunity to figure out how to do it. There are a lot of different ways and I will show you how I do mine specifically, but really you just need to find what works for you. But if you can practice and you can start your budget before you move to the UK, by the time you move here and things are very stressful and scary, you already understand how to keep a budget, how to maintain it, so it's like one less thing to worry about. Starting a budget early also means that you can save up a lot easier if you actually know where your money is going. So you can start your budget early, get used to it, try a bunch of different programs to see what works best for you, and you can then use it to help save money for your visa and for the moving costs to move to the UK. Because surprise, it is very costly. The next step will be to find a budgeting program or software that you like. Now, there are a lot out there and that can be a bit overwhelming, but if you start this process before you move to the UK, give yourself time to try out a couple and see what you like. And they can vary from free to quite expensive. Now, this is not sponsored, but I use a program called You Need a Budget. It is a paid service, but I have been using it for the last 4 or 5 years and I absolutely love it. I was brand new to budgeting. I felt very overwhelmed and freaked out, and You Need a Budget is structured in such a way that it makes it really easy to understand and very easy to see where your money is going. If you'd like to try You Need a Budget, I will put a link in the description that gives you 1 month free, but I'm gonna show you what it looks like for me anyways, because that is the program that I use. If you don't want to pay for a budgeting software like You Need a Budget, maybe you're a bit more confident in your budgeting skills, perhaps, you could make your own in things like Excel. So of course, this would require you to understand Excel and to be able to build your own budget in the software, but it is free. And if you're confident in that kind of stuff, that is certainly a way to go. Otherwise, I will put a bunch of popular budgeting softwares in the description so you can have a look to see what works best for you. Now, the big question is, what do I budget for when living in the UK? Now, I'm not going to talk about specific figures or cost of living because that is a separate video entirely. But before we actually figure out those numbers, we have to build the structure of our budget. So these are things like groups and categories. So here are the groups and categories that I use. First up, the first group that is the most important, I call home. So these are the day-to-day life costs and expenses that I pretty much need to pay to survive. So these are things like rent, bills, my mobile plan, groceries. I also have a category for house stuff. So this could be like any furniture or any like homeware stuff, or say I break a glass, like a drinking glass, and I need to buy new cups, like any sort of houseware, homeware type stuff. I also have a category for travel / train. I pretty much only use the train, but of course buses do exist here in the UK, or if you live in London, you are going to need to budget for using the underground, but some sort of travel category is super helpful. And by travel, I mean like day-to-day travel, not like your next big holiday. That's a separate category. I will also have health and beauty. So this is things like I need a new hairbrush, or I need new toiletries, or I need to pay for a prescription. And finally, in my home category, I include my next UK visa. While this is like quite a big cost, I find it's really helpful to include it in my main group. So every month I can put some money into this category. So by the time it comes around, I'm going to have money saved for it. And being able to pay for my UK visa is pretty vital to living in the UK, which is why I include it in this group. Now, while I don't have a car in the UK anymore, I did at some point. So I had my own car group, and I found it to be extremely helpful to have this as its own separate group because there's quite a lot of costs associated with having a car. So these are things like fuel, AKA gas or petrol, as the Brits will say. Car insurance, this is extremely expensive for foreigners, so you better budget for it. You also have things like car tax, MOT test. So your car needs to be tested to pass this MOT check. and it does cost money. We're also talking about car maintenance. So if my tire exploded, I wanted to have money to be able to pay for it. I also have a category for parking because it pays to park most places. And I would have a final category for my next car. So if I was saving up for a new car, I could throw some money in that category each month to save up for a new car. Now, currently I don't own a car and I have been using public transport for the last couple of years. I do intend to get a car again in the future. So I still have this group and all of these categories. And when I have some extra money, I do throw some pounds into these categories. So by the time buying a new car comes around, I already have some money saved up. But if you are in the UK short term, or there is no possibility that you will be driving, then there's certainly no point to having this category. My next group is called For Fun. So these are things, as you might expect, that are for fun. They're not necessarily needed for survival, but they are certainly needed for fun. So some of the categories are things like dining out, clothing, gifts and Christmas, pub visits and or cafe/coffee visits, and entertainment. So if I want to go out to dinner with friends, or I want to go to the pub one evening, or I want to buy new clothes, I consider all of these for fun categories because I don't actually need to do them to live, but they certainly help with fun and enjoyment. And it is really helpful to have some money saved up for these particular things so I don't have to stress about it when the time comes. Especially for Christmas and gifts, I find this category to be particularly helpful come Christmas time, and I'm panicking about buying so many presents. I already have this category ready and I budget for it throughout the year. So when Christmas comes around, it's not that big of a deal. I already have money saved, so I don't need to panic. Another group I have in my budget is called Quality of Life, or these are like saving up for particular items, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But I call it quality of life. So categories in this group are flights home. So if I want to go back home, it is expensive. And there's no way of getting around that. So I always have this category going. So if something comes up, or I know that most summers I like to go back home to Canada, and I have this category ready to pay for flights home. In quality of life, I will also have my next big holiday. It again is not vital to survive, but it improves my quality of life. So I do want to save for it. I will also have any particular like tech item per se that I'm saving up for in this group. So right now I am saving up for new headphones. They're not, again, vital, but they are pretty important and they can be very expensive. So if I'm saving up for some particular thing or item or something a bit expensive, I'll typically have it here. It is also helpful to have a category in one of your groups, perhaps like quality of life or home or wherever it goes, to have some money for like repairs or maintenance. So like if I were to spill a drink all over my laptop, that is going to be a costly repair, and it is very helpful to have some money squirreled away somewhere for those types of things. Another group in my budget is for savings. Now, these are for long-term savings, and it really depends on your own situation on how you want to handle this. But whether you're going to stay in the UK long-term or you're just here for uni and you're going to go back home, I think it is extremely helpful to start thinking about long-term savings. Whether your savings are in like a British institution type thing or you're just putting money aside for the future. So for me, some of my saving categories are my pension. So I have a pension in a proper pension fund here in the UK. If you are going to be here short term, it's not worth it. But it's still helpful to put money aside. I also have a lifetime ISA. And again, that is a British savings account. It's an official account because I'm going to be here long term. If you are not, again, it's helpful to just put money aside. I also have a category just called house. I would like to buy a house and I would like to have some money available not in a British account or in some sort of fund. So I have a category simply called house where I can throw some money in there. It is not tied into anything. So of course I am not earning interest, but it is available for a house ideally. But if you are in the UK short term, or you don't know if you're going to stay in the UK, it can be quite a hassle to invest into, say, a lifetime ISA, and then you are going to go back home, so you have to be able to withdraw all that money or transfer it to a new account. It can get quite messy and confusing, but at the very least, I would recommend having some type of savings category in your budget that you can put money aside for, but it's not in anything necessarily. So if you move country to country, it doesn't really matter because it's just sort of cash savings that you have in your account and you have access to it. But if you do want to invest properly and you want to earn interest and all that fun stuff, I definitely would recommend meeting with some sort of financial advisor, whether you do that here in the UK because you're going to be here long term, or you speak with someone back in your home country and they can offer some suggestions on what you can be doing. But either way, it is very helpful to budget, no matter what category it's for. Now, please, from one expat to another, I beg you, do not overlook creating a budget. I have seen so many expats here in the UK that didn't bother keeping a budget, that didn't understand where their money went. They ultimately ran out of money and they had to go back to their home country. There are way less financial safety nets for expats living in the UK, which is why having your own budget is so important. A lot of UK visas will even say straight on the visa card that you are not allowed public funds, even if something terrible should happen. If you lose your job or you can't afford rent, you're not allowed public funds typically, and you also can't just like move in with your parents because they live in a different country. So having a budget, maintaining said budget, and understanding where your money goes is absolutely vital. So that is how I structure my budget. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. If you would like to learn more about settling up life here in the UK, why not check out this video where I talk about how to get a UK bank account. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.